Will Nigeria ever get better? Will Nigeria ever get back to the state we imagined it to be? Will Nigeria ever rise again? These are the questions I received in my last video. Somebody sent me a text and said, I saw your video and I see how passionate we are talking about Nigeria. And he said, will Nigeria ever get better? Or are we really wasting our time? Welcome to the Diary of a Broken Man, where we dissect political, economic, and social issues concerning our country, Nigeria, and Africa as a whole. As usual, remember to subscribe, to like, to share, and to comment. Today, we talk about anyhowness in the Nigerian system. Stay tuned. The term anyhowness in the context of Nigeria as a country is a colloquial expression that refers to disorderliness, lack of structure, or a haphazard approach to governance and societal issues. So it captures a sense of dysfunction, a sense of inefficiency, or disregard for rule and order. That some Nigerians and observers attribute to aspects of the country's governance and the system in general. So when we say anyhowness, we shall deliberate in details what we mean by anyhowness, because sometimes when we say that we are doing things anyhow, you may not believe it until maybe you leave Nigeria. In fact, the very first shocker you get as a Nigerian, cultural shock you get the first time you leave Nigeria, especially when you go to places like Asia. The first shocker you get is that orderliness. It makes you look at yourself again, whether we are actually living like a human being back from where you came from. So it's something that we really need to pay deep attention to. So today we shall touch on several aspects of what makes anyhowness in the Nigerian system, including both the government and the people as Nigerians. Because if you blame the government, you also blame the governed. Because Nigerians on their own do their own. Maybe one day we talk about Nigerians as Nigerians, because sometimes I wonder if we actually get the good governance we are clamoring for. I wonder how many Nigerians will live through that, obey the rules and regulation, adhere to order, signs of order, and some of those things. That is another story for another day. So today we look at various things that make up what we call anyhowness in the Nigerian system, and then we see a way to make amends as a nation. Number one of the anyhowness in Nigerian government is what we call corruption. It is a household name, corruption. So the Nigerian government operates as a federal republic with a presidential system comprising 3 branches: 1, the executive; 2, the legislative; 3, the judicial, as outlined in the 1999 Constitution as amended. So when we say anyhowness, it often emerges in critics of governance due to systemic challenges that undermine efficiency, accountability, and the public trust. So key manifestations include 1, corruption and the lack of accountability. So let's talk about corruption first before we talk about another thing. So corruption is a pervasive issue in Nigeria, often cited as the root causes of anyhowness. Public officials, including those in high-ranking positions, have been implicated in embezzlement and siphoning of billions, bribery, and mismanagement of public resources, particularly in the oil and the security sectors. Let's not talk about the executive sector of Nigeria or the Senate. For instance, Transparency International consistently ranks Nigeria among the world's most corrupt nations, and the public sectors Bribery is rampant, with many Nigerians reporting paying bribes for basic service. You see, when we talk about anyhowness, people may not understand until you go to various offices in Nigeria, different offices from the local government areas down to the state houses, and then so many other offices. The way things are done makes you question yourself. I mean, things that should be basic to every individual as a Nigerian, people pay thousands for them just to get basic services. So it's something that's worth looking at again. This fosters a perception of governance as chaotic and self-serving, where law and the policies are applied inconsistently or bypassed for personal gain. Another one is weak institutional capacity. So we've talked about corruption now. So we talk about weak institutional capacity. Many government institutions lack the technical and administrative capacity to deliver services effectively. The Nigerian state is described as underperforming due to its inability to address complex governance challenges such as insecurity, such as infrastructural deficits, and the economic instability, to mention but a few. For example, the police force in Nigeria has been criticized for brutality, extortion, and inefficiency. That's why we had the NSAS 2020. Okay, so if that situation didn't occur, if the Nigerian police were doing what they were supposed to do, required by the law to do, there wouldn't be any case for police brutality and then subsequent action, which was NSAS. And in the last few months, we've seen rising cases of police brutality, extortion, even to foreigners who visit Nigeria, spoiling the image of the country. You see, this present administration has been shouting about the marketing Nigeria and so on and so forth, but in reality, you ask yourself, who demarkets Nigeria the most? Is it the people or the government? When we talk about government, the police inclusive, because they are part of the government, the security outfits who enforce law, and so many other state apparatus that have debased themselves into extortion and doing all sorts of, backhand things. So another one is electoral irregularities. This cannot be stressed enough. Thanks to the man Peter for Nigeria, who has been clamoring for electoral reforms. Thanks to his efforts, and I hope Nigeria listens, because 2027, whether you like it or not, will not be game as usual. You can't rig election and sit on that seat. You can't rig election in 2027 and sit on that seat. Nigerians won't allow that again. I believe what happened in 2023 downwards should be a caveat. It will never repeat again. So electoral irregularities. The electoral processes in Nigeria is often marred by logistical issues, by violence, and the allegations of vote buying, contributing to perception of anyhowness. The 2023 elections, for instance, faced reports of violence and low voter turnout, with observers noting challenges in transparency and the credibility. This undermines democracy and democratic processes, as citizens feel that their votes do not translate into accountable governance. It's appalling that people come out to vote, and in fact, at some point during elections in 2023, people were threatening others that if you are from a certain tribe, don't even come out to vote if you will not vote our candidate. That's how bad it is. Okay? So another one is policy inconsistency and implementation gap. So frequent policy reversal and poor execution contribute to the sense of disorder. For example, economic reforms such as the removal of the fuel subsidies under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in 2023 have led to soaring inflation and the public hardship, often without clear communication or mitigating measures, leaving citizens feeling neglected. You see, there are things that you see and you wonder whether these people in government have feelings at all. Now, it is just 2 years or less into the administration, and the primary preoccupation of the Nigerian government is not even to give Nigerians good governance. It is not to build dilapidated roads, to rehabilitate the hospitals in Nigeria that they cannot visit themselves. It is not to rebuild our schools. It's almost about debased things, things that make you question your reality. Like 2 years into your administration, you're already campaigning for 2027. Everywhere there is poster of the present regime, and you ask yourself, what has these people done that gives them the morale to come out for the next election? Because as far as I'm concerned, Nigerians have seen enough. And if Nigerians fumble 2027, over with Nigeria. It's as good as giving up on Nigeria. So it's time Nigerians started looking at things clearly, the way it should be. So anyhowness in the relationship between government and the people, you see, it cuts across boards. So there is anyhowness in everywhere. You see what is happening with EFCC now? They made a policy concerning Naira mutilation, and to that effect, they have arrested a few people, Bobrisky, the crossdresser, arrested the chief priest, Cubana chief priest, arrested a few others, e-money them. And then all of a sudden, maybe a high security, somebody from the named Tompolo or something like that, was being accused of doing the same thing that flouting the policy you made. And all of a sudden, the head of EFCC, who has been arrested the other day, he whisked, let me not use the word arrested, he kidnapped the Vincent to say the very dark black man, and we are still talking about that very arrest. And all of a sudden, somebody does the same thing, and the EFCC seems so powerless. And instead of taking actions, they have resorted to defending the actions of the person who flouted their, directives. So sometimes you wonder why this level of anyhowness. So let's get to the conclusion of this. So government and the people, the concept of anyhowness also manifests in the strained relationship, and it's between the Nigerian government and its citizens, characterized by what we call mistrust, disconnection, and the mutual, frustration of the citizens. Everybody is annoyed. You touch any Nigerian now, the next thing is the government is so bad, this and that. It is a sign of anyhowness. Okay, so then the broken social contract. You remember when we defined government, from Thomas Hobbes to John Locke to some other philosophers who defined social contract, as giving up of our wills, individual wills. Ordinarily, in the state of nature, everybody will be doing his own thing. In different theories, according to John Hobbes, in the state of nature, everything is anarchy. The strongest man becomes who owns everything. But with government, we submit our wills to a leviathan, the big man, who controls the affairs, makes sure that everybody gets what is needed, instead of the might is right. Okay? So that's what social contract is. We submit our wills and we obey what we submitted our wills for. But unfortunately, instead of obeying these social contracts, the government is not doing their own part. And therefore, there is a strain in relationship between the people and the government. And there is no society that progresses in this kind of environment. So, There is a widespread perception of a broken social contract where the government fails to provide basic services like security, electricity, and infrastructure, while citizens are expected to comply with taxes and laws. You see, people pay taxes, people pay high electricity tariff for lights that they don't use. I mean, there was a time when I was living in Lagos. I was working in Lagos Island then, and then I was going from Festac to Lagos Island. You can imagine the distance every morning. So I remembered at a point I paid electricity bills, but I was burning fuel every night. At a point I got so annoyed. I had to install solar. But solar has its own limitations. At 4, everything goes off. So I got so annoyed that I asked myself one day. I remember I went to play ball on Saturday, and I asked my colleagues, my teammates, how do we pay for electricity every month? If you don't pay, they come to cut the light. How do we pay for this? And these people don't even give us light. How are we comfortable and everybody is relaxed, like nothing is happening, like it is normal? My problem is the complacency in Nigerians, like it is normal. So let me know your own bit of what you know about the anyhowness of the Nigerian system. Let me know what you think about it and how you see it as a Nigerian. Okay, we discuss this in details in the next video. Make sure you tune in the next video, and I'll see you on the next one. This is also the Diary of a Broken Man. Remember to subscribe, to like, to share, and to comment, and I will see you on the next one. Cheers.